Ambassador Kang Daeho sat in his office on Nexus Prime, reading the same message for the 10th time. His hands shook slightly as he held the data pad. 23 years. That was how long humans had been part of the Galactic Unity Council. 23 years of working together, sharing knowledge and building a better galaxy. Now it was all falling apart. The message was simple and cold. The Council had voted. Directive 847 was now law. All human children would be genetically changed to make them less aggressive and more obedient. The changes would start in 30 days. Kang set down the pad and looked out his window at the massive space station. Ships from 47 different species came and went every hour. For years he had been proud to represent humanity here. He had believed in the Council's mission of unity and peace. Captain Yoon Minho knocked on the door and entered. The security chief looked worried. "Sir, have you seen the news feeds?" "About the directive?" "Yes." "No, sir. About why they voted for it." Yoon activated a wall screen. The Kepler-7 incident. Kang watched the news report with growing anger. 3 months ago, raiders had attacked the human colony on Kepler-7. The colonists had fought back hard. They used military tactics, set traps, and fought with everything they had. 50,000 people lived because of their courage, but the Council saw it differently. The news reporter, a tall alien with blue skin, spoke in serious tones about human violence and dangerous aggression. The reporter made it sound like the colonists were the problem, not the raiders who had tried to kill them. "This is insane," Kang said. "They defended their homes." "It gets worse, sir." Yoon switched to another channel. Councillor Veltharian gave a speech yesterday. The reptilian alien appeared on screen. His cold eyes stared directly at the camera as he spoke. "Humans are a threat to galactic peace. Their warrior nature cannot be allowed to spread. We have seen what happens when they are cornered. They become animals. For the good of all species, this must be controlled." Kang felt sick. He had worked with Veltharian for years. The alien had always been polite, even friendly. Now he spoke about humans like they were dangerous beasts. Dr. Park Hyejin arrived 30 minutes later. The chief science advisor looked exhausted. She carried a thick folder of papers and data pads. "I analyzed the genetic modifications they want to make," she said without greeting. "Kang, this is not about reducing violence. This is about making us slaves." She spread the papers across his desk. Charts and graphs showed complex genetic changes, but her explanation was simple and terrifying. They want to change the parts of our brains that make us curious, creative, and independent. A human child with these changes would never question orders. They would never think of new ideas or want to explore. They would be perfect workers who always obey. Kang stared at the papers. "Are you sure?" "I ran the numbers 5 times. I had my whole team check the work. This is not about making us peaceful. This is about making us controllable." Yoon pulled up another file on his data pad. "Sir, I did some digging into the vote. Want to know something interesting? They scheduled it while all the human representatives were at the Colonial Affairs meeting on Titan Station." "That was planned," Kang said slowly. "Yes, sir." Veltharian spent months getting other species to agree. He told them humans were becoming too powerful, too independent. He said we needed to be managed before we became a threat. Dr. Park looked up from her papers. "How many species voted yes?" "All of them," Yoon said quietly. 46-0. They didn't even wait for us to get back. The room went silent. Kang walked to his window again. Below, he could see the human section of the station. Thousands of people worked there. Scientists, engineers, doctors, teachers. They had all come here believing in the Council's promise of cooperation and equality. "What are our options?" he asked. Dr. Park answered first. "We could fight it in the courts, file appeals, demand hearings." "How long would that take?" "Years, maybe decades. And they start the modifications in 30 days. Yoon spoke next. "We could refuse to comply, make them force us. Then what? They have armies. They have fleets. Earth is surrounded by council. Space. Dr. Park gathered her papers. There is one other option. Both men looked at her. We leave. Leave? Kang asked. We withdraw from the council, take our people and go. Start over somewhere else. Yoon laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Just like that? Walk away from everything we built here? What exactly did we build? Dr. Park asked. We shared our technology and they used it. We solved their problems and they took credit. We fought their wars and they called us violent. What did we actually get in return? Kang thought about this. What had humanity gained from council membership? They had access to alien technology, but most of it was less advanced than human designs. They had trading partners, but humans produced more than they consumed. They had protection, but human fleets did most of the fighting. The other species depend on us, he said. Yes, Dr. Park agreed. They depend on us to solve problems they cannot solve, to fight battles they cannot win, to innovate while they follow rules that stop progress. Maybe it is time they learned to depend on themselves. Yoon was reading something on his data pad. Sir, I just got a message from Admiral Lee. The fleet commanders are asking questions. Word is spreading about the directive. They want to know what our response will be. Kang made his decision. 23 years of his life had been dedicated to making the council work. He had believed in cooperation between species. He had thought they were building something beautiful together. But Veltharion was right about one thing. Humans did have a warrior nature. They fought for what was right. They refused to give up when things got hard. They protected the innocent and stood up. To bullies, the council wanted to take that away. They wanted to turn humans into mindless servants who would never question, never rebel, never stand up for themselves or others. That was a line no one should cross. Send a message to all human representatives, military commanders, and colony governors, he said. Emergency meeting in 6 hours. Tell them to prepare for immediate recall of all human personnel from council space. Sir? Yoon asked. We are withdrawing from the Galactic Unity Council, effective immediately. Dr. Park smiled for the first time that day. It is about time. Kang looked out at the busy space station one last time. Tomorrow, it would be a very different place. The humans would be gone, and the council would learn what they had really lost. Admiral Lee Jiho stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the largest evacuation in human history unfold. 72 hours had passed since Ambassador Kang announced the withdrawal. Now Lee commanded 400 ships racing across council. Space to bring every human home. Status report, he called to his bridge crew. 127 pickup points confirmed, replied his communications officer. 2.3 million civilians to evacuate. Military personnel already moving to rally points. Lee nodded. The numbers were staggering, but his people were ready. They had trained for emergencies, though no one had imagined anything like this. I know. Minister Kim Soo-young's voice came through the comm system from her transport ship. Admiral, we have a problem at Centauri Station. The station commander is refusing to let our people leave. What do you mean, refusing? He says humans are too valuable to lose. He is claiming they are essential personnel who cannot be transferred. Lee smiled grimly. Send Captain Nam's squadron to Centauri. Tell the station commander he has 1 hour to change his mind. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Nam Yuna was leading her fighters through the Alteran system. Below her, the planet's capital city sprawled across a continent. Somewhere down there, 50,000 humans lived and worked. Control tower, this is Captain Nam requesting immediate landing clearance for evacuation transport. Negative, Captain Nam. Your people cannot leave at this time. They are needed for the water treatment plant repairs. Nam checked her scanners. The planet's entire water system was built with human technology. Without human engineers to maintain it, 12 billion aliens would have serious problems in a matter of weeks. Control tower, our engineers will provide you with technical manuals and training materials. But they are leaving today. That is not sufficient. Your people must stay. Nam armed her ship's weapons. Control tower, I have 200 fighters and 10 transport ships. We are coming down to get our people. You can make this easy or you can make this hard, but either way, We are taking them home. The control tower went silent for several minutes. Then, landing clearance granted. Dr. Choi Woo-bin worked frantically in his laboratory on Research Station Omega-7. Around him, his team packed decades of research while carefully destroying anything that could not be moved. The quantum resonance data goes with us, he told his assistant. The council never understood how it worked anyway. What about the fusion reactor designs? Wipe them. If they want clean energy, they can figure it out themselves. Dr. Choi felt bad about leaving the other scientists on the station. Many had become friends over the years, but they had voted to make human children into slaves. Some lines could not be uncrossed. The evacuation revealed something the council had never fully understood. Humans were not just members of their society. They were the foundation that held much of it together. On Kepler Station, the main computer network crashed 6 hours after the human technicians left. No one else knew how to fix the advanced systems humans had installed. The medical center on Noim Proxima Base shut down when Dr. An Jisoo and her team departed. They took with them the only knowledge of how to operate the surgical robots and diagnostic machines they had built. 3 planets lost their weather control systems when human atmospheric engineers evacuated. The council had always taken these services for granted. Now storms raged uncontrolled across inhabited continents. Prime Counselor Zephytos called an emergency session as reports poured in from across council space. The ancient energy being floated at the center of the great chamber, its light pulsing with obvious distress. This cannot be happening, Counselor Veltharion hissed. They are bluffing. They need us more than we need them. Do they? Asked Counselor Threshkari. The insect-like alien gestured at the wall screen showing system failures across their territory. Look at these reports. Hospitals failing, power plants shutting down, defense grids going offline. Temporary problems, Veltharion insisted. We will reverse engineer their technology, build our own systems. Counselor Yiltheon, who had remained silent for over 200 years, suddenly spoke. I have seen this before. Long ago my people made a similar mistake. We tried to control those who served us best. We are still paying the price. On the human transport ship Unity's End, Minister Kim watched her datapad with mixed emotions. The evacuation was ahead of schedule, but the personal cost was enormous. She read message after message from humans who had built lives in council space. A teacher who had worked for 30 years on an alien world. A family that ran a successful restaurant serving both humans and aliens. A young couple about to be married to partners from another species. All of them were leaving everything behind because the council had decided human children needed to be changed into something else. Minister, her aide said softly. We are getting requests from other species. Some want to come with us. Come with us? Non-humans who want to leave council space. Scientists, engineers, doctors. They say if the council will do this to humans, their species might be next. Kim was not surprised. The council's decision had shattered the illusion of cooperation and equality. If they could vote to genetically modify one member species without consultation, they could do it to any species. How many requests? So far? About 50,000. Admiral Lee's fleet gathered at the edge of council space. 400 ships carrying over 2 million humans and their alien friends. Behind them, they left a council territory already starting to fall apart. Ambassador Kang stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel New Dawn. Through the view screen, he could see Nexus Prime growing smaller in the distance. 23 years of his life were on that station. Now he was flying away from it all. Any regrets, sir? Captain Yoon asked. Kang thought about the question. I regret that it came to this. I regret that beings I thought were friends turned out to be something else. But leaving? No. I do not regret leaving. The council is sending messages, the communications officer reported. They want to negotiate. Tell them there is nothing to negotiate, Kang replied. They voted to turn our children into slaves. Some things cannot be forgiven. Doctor, Park joined them on the bridge. I have been monitoring council communications. They are starting to panic. The Alterian system is dealing with a plague outbreak and they cannot operate the medical equipment we left behind. Can they figure it out? Eventually, but not before many people die. Kang felt a moment of sadness for the innocent beings who would suffer because of the Council's stupidity, but humans had offered to share their knowledge freely. The Council had chosen to demand genetic slavery instead. Admiral Lee is requesting permission to jump to hyperspace, Captain Yoon reported. Kang nodded. Give the order. Take us home. The massive fleet engaged their faster-than-light drive simultaneously. In seconds, they vanished from Council space, leaving behind empty stations, failed systems, and the growing realization that the Council had made the biggest mistake in galactic history. On Nexus Prime, Prime Counselor Zephytos watched the last human ship disappear from the sensors. Around the chamber, other counselors argued and blamed each other for the crisis. But Zephytos knew the truth. The humans had not abandoned the Council. The Council had abandoned everything it claimed to stand for. And now, they would all pay the price for Veltharian's hatred and fear. The evacuation was complete. Humanity had walked away from unity. Now they would have to build something better on their own. 3 months after the Great Withdrawal, Governor Bae Junho stood on the observation deck of New Terra Colony and smiled. Below him, a city was taking shape faster than anyone thought possible. Without Council restrictions on construction methods and technology use, human engineers were building marvels. The population is up to 800,000, his assistant reported. More ships arrive every day. Not just humans anymore, Bae noted. He could see alien families walking through the streets below. How many other species have joined us, Psyker? Count was 43 different species. They keep coming. Chief Engineer O Minji approached with a data pad full of technical reports. Governor, the quantum communication array is ready for testing. We should be able to talk to Earth instantly no matter how far away we are. Bae raised an eyebrow. I thought instant communication was impossible. The Council said it was impossible. They were wrong about a lot of things. O smiled. Without their rules against dangerous research, we solved it in 2 months. Across the galaxy, the Council was learning just how wrong they had been about many things. On Altera Prime, Dr. Velnari stared at her medical scanner in frustration. The human-designed equipment had been working perfectly for years. Now it showed nothing but error messages. Have you tried the backup diagnostic system? Her assistant asked. I have tried everything. Without Dr. An and her team, we cannot repair these machines. She gestured helplessly at the rows of advanced medical equipment. We have the most sophisticated hospital in this sector, and we cannot use any of it. The situation was repeated across dozens of worlds. Human technology was everywhere, but only humans really understood how it worked. The Council had always assumed they could learn these things when needed. They had been wrong. On Nexus Prime, Counselor Threshkari presented her weekly disaster report to an increasingly worried Council. 12 systems have requested emergency aid for infrastructure failures. The water treatment plants on Kepler station are beginning to fail. 3 planets have lost atmospheric control. Where are our engineers? Veltharian demanded. Why cannot our people fix these problems? Because our people did not build these systems, Threshkari replied patiently. Humans built them, humans maintained them, humans understood them, we just used them. Prime Counselor Zephytos pulsed with dim light. The ancient being seemed to have aged years in just months. What about the defense grid? Partially operational. But without human tactical systems, our response time to threats has increased by 400%. That is unacceptable, Veltharian hissed. Send a fleet to human space. Demand they return and fulfill their obligations. What obligations? Counselor Yiltheon asked quietly. We expelled them from the Council. We voted to genetically modify their children without their consent. What exactly do they owe us? Meanwhile, Dr. Zhang Kyung-soo was making discoveries that would have been impossible under Council oversight. His xenobiology lab on New Terra had been given unlimited research freedom. The results were spectacular. I have isolated the genetic sequence that causes Alterian wasting disease, he told Governor Bae. With proper treatment, we could save millions of lives. Will you share this with the council? Dr. Zhang was quiet for a moment. They are not our responsibility anymore. But the Alterian people did not vote to make our children into slaves. Send the data to their medical facilities directly. This became the pattern. Human scientists continued their research without restrictions. When they made breakthroughs that could help other species, they shared the information freely with the people who needed it. But they ignored all requests from the council government. The council's military situation was getting worse every day. General Voxmaran of the warrior species Krextai had always respected human tactical abilities. Now, watching his fleets struggle against simple pirate raids, he understood just how much they had lost. Report, he growled at his aide. The raiders hit 3 more convoys this week. Our response time was 47 minutes. 47 minutes? Voxmaran slammed his fist on the table. When humans ran the tactical network, response time was under 10 minutes. Yes, sir. The human computer systems are too complex for our technicians to operate properly. Voxmaran stared at the tactical display. Red dots marked raider attacks across council space. For years, these same raiders had been held in check by swift, precise council responses. Human-designed systems had tracked every ship, predicted every attack, coordinated every defense. Now the raiders were running wild because the council had decided human children were too dangerous to leave unchanged. The worst crisis came when long-range sensors detected something that made every species in the galaxy nervous. The interdimensional raiders were massing for a major assault. These were not ordinary pirates. The interdimensional raiders came from somewhere else entirely, appearing without warning to destroy entire civilizations before vanishing again. The council's automated defense grid was the only thing that had kept them at bay for decades. Status of the defense grid? Prime Counselor Zephitos asked. 70% offline, reported the technical officer. The human-built control systems are failing one by one. We cannot operate them properly. Time until the raiders arrive? 2 weeks, maybe less. Panic spread through the council chambers. Without the defense grid, they were helpless against an interdimensional assault. Worlds would burn. Entire species could be wiped out. We must contact the humans, Threshkari said. Ask for their help. Never, Veltharion shouted. We will not beg those primitives for assistance. Those primitives built every system that keeps us alive, Counselor Yiltheon observed. Perhaps it is time to admit our mistake. But Veltharion's faction still controlled the council. Instead of asking for help, they made another disastrous decision. They would force humans to return. A council fleet of 200 ships jumped to human space with demands. The humans must return immediately and restore all systems. If they refused, the council would consider it an act of war against galactic civilization. Admiral Li Jiho met the council fleet at the edge of human territory. His 40 ships were vastly outnumbered, but he was not worried. This is Admiral Li of the Human Defense Force. State your business in our space. The council fleet commander, a proud Zentaran named Clixvor, transmitted his demands. You will return to council space immediately. You will restore all systems you sabotaged. You will submit to genetic modification as required by law. Li almost laughed. Commander, you seem confused. We are no longer part of your council. Your laws do not apply to us. You have no authority here. We have 200 ships. You have 40. You will comply or face destruction. Li activated his tactical display. Commander, you have 200 ships built with human technology. Ships we designed, built, and maintained. Would you like to see what happens when we activate their shutdown codes? Clixvor was about to respond when every ship in his fleet suddenly went dark. Engines died. Weapons powered down. Life support switched to emergency backup. We built your ships, Li said calmly. We programmed their computers. Did you really think we would not include safeguards? The council fleet drifted helplessly in space as Li's ship surrounded them. You have 1 hour to leave human space. After that, we will consider your presence an invasion and respond accordingly. Clixvor had no choice but to order the retreat. As his fleet limped back to council space, he realized the truth. The council had not expelled humanity. They had freed them to become something far more dangerous. Back on New Terra, Governor Bay received reports of the interdimensional raider threat. His response was swift and decisive. "Send a message to all inhabited worlds in the former council space," he ordered. "Any planet that wants protection from the raiders is welcome to request assistance. We will defend civilian populations regardless of politics." It was a message that would change everything. Humanity had not walked away from unity. They had walked away from the council's version of it. Now they were offering something better: protection without domination, cooperation without slavery, unity without oppression. The raiders were coming, and the council was helpless to stop them. But humanity was ready to show the galaxy what real unity looked like. Commander Shin Dongwoo crouched behind the rubble of what had been a beautiful city just hours before. Around him, his reconnaissance team watched in horror as interdimensional raiders tore through another council world. The defense grid had failed completely. 3 planets had already fallen. "Sir, we have visual on the raiders," his scout reported quietly. "They are not like anything in our files." Shin looked through his scope at the enemy forces. The beings moved like shadows, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons dissolved matter at the molecular level. Entire buildings simply ceased to exist when struck. "Council forces?" he asked. "Retreating on all fronts. They cannot even slow the raiders down." Shin activated his communication device. "Command, this is Recon 7. The situation is worse than we thought. Request immediate evacuation of all civilians from the combat zone." Back on New Terra, the crisis response team worked around the clock. Dr. Lim Chae-young studied the sensor, data from the raider attacks, while Ambassador Young Tae-hyun coordinated with governments across the galaxy. "The raiders are using some kind of quantum phase technology," Dr. Lim explained to the assembled officers. "They can shift between dimensions to avoid most weapons." "Can we stop them?" Admiral Lee asked. "Maybe. I have been working on quantum tunnel drives. The same principles might work for weapons." Ambassador Jung looked up from his communication console. "I have 17 species requesting immediate assistance. They are offering to join our alliance in exchange for protection." "What about the council?" Governor Bay asked. "Still refusing to admit they need help. Veltharion is telling everyone the situation is under control. It was a lie, and everyone knew it. The council was collapsing as more worlds fell to the raiders." Refugee ships streamed toward human space, carrying survivors from the devastated planets. On Nexus Prime, the council chambers had become a place of chaos and fear. Half the member species were demanding immediate action. The other half were secretly negotiating to join the human alliance. "We must ask for human assistance," Councillor Threshkari pleaded. "Our people are dying." "We will handle this ourselves," Veltharion replied coldly. "I will not give those primitives the satisfaction of begging for help." Councillor Yiltheon's ancient voice cut through the argument. "I have lived for over 3,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species make the same mistakes again and again. This is not about pride anymore. This is about survival. You suggest we surrender to the humans? I suggest we stop pretending we are better than them. They built our technology. They protected our worlds. They solved our problems. And we repaid them by trying to turn their children into slaves." The debate was interrupted by an urgent message. The raiders had attacked Zentari Prime, homeworld of one of the Council's founding species. The planet's defenses had lasted less than 6 hours. Meanwhile, Dr. Lim's team achieved a breakthrough that would change the course of the war. Working without Council restrictions on dangerous research, they had developed weapons that could target interdimensional beings. "The quantum disruptor works," she announced to Admiral Lee. "We can force the raiders to stay in our dimension where conventional weapons can hit them." "How long to build enough weapons to make a difference?" "With our current production capacity? 6 months." "We do not have 6 months," Dr. Lim smiled. "We do if we get help. I am sending the plans to every species that has joined our alliance. Shared knowledge, shared production, shared defense." It was the opposite of the Council's approach. Instead of hoarding technology and maintaining control, humans were freely sharing their most advanced weapons with anyone willing to fight the raiders. The response was immediate. 43 species began building quantum disruptors. Production facilities that had sat idle under council regulations roared to life. In just 2 weeks, the first weapons were ready for testing. The test came sooner than expected. A raider fleet appeared at the edge of the Kepler system, heading straight for the human colonies. This time, humanity was ready. Captain Lee Young-soo commanded the flagship New Hope as it led a combined fleet of human and allied ships into battle. For the first time in the war, someone was going to fight back effectively. All ships, this is Captain Lee. Activate quantum disruptors on my mark. The raider ships shimmered as they began to phase between dimensions, preparing to launch their devastating attack. But as the disruptors engaged, they found themselves trapped in normal space. Target acquired. All ships, fire at will. The battle was swift and decisive. Unable to phase away from incoming fire, the raider ships were destroyed within minutes. For the first time since the attacks began, an entire raider fleet had been eliminated. News of the victory spread across the galaxy within hours. Species that had been considering surrender suddenly had hope again. The interdimensional raiders could be defeated. On Nexus Prime, the victory created a crisis within the Council leadership. Half the remaining members wanted to immediately request Human Alliance membership. The other half, led by Veltharion, insisted they could reverse engineer the human weapons. We need those quantum disruptors, Threshkari argued. Our worlds are defenseless without them. We will build our own, Veltharion replied. I refuse to beg the humans for scraps from their table. But the Council's top scientists had already tried to duplicate human technology. Without the theoretical knowledge behind the designs, they could not even build basic fusion reactors, much less quantum weapons. The situation became desperate when the raiders launched a massive assault on the Council's core worlds. 50 raider fleets attacked simultaneously across 12 systems. Without quantum disruptors, the Council forces were helpless. Veltharion made one final, fatal decision. If he could not get human technology through negotiation, he would take it by force. Council intelligence had located several human research facilities in neutral space. He ordered raids to capture the scientists and steal their work. The attack on Dr. Lim's research station was perfectly planned. Council special forces had studied human defense patterns for months. They struck fast and hard, expecting to overwhelm the small security team. They had not expected Commander Shin's unit to be conducting training exercises nearby. The battle was short, but vicious. Council forces found themselves facing humans who had been freed from Council restrictions on military development. New armor, new weapons, new tactics that the Council had banned as too aggressive proved devastatingly effective. Surrender, and you will be treated according to galactic law, Commander Shin announced as his forces surrounded the surviving raiders. The Council team leader, a Zentaran officer named Krixval, refused. We are acting under legitimate authority. Release us immediately. You attacked a civilian research facility in neutral space. That makes you pirates, not soldiers. The incident made headlines across the galaxy. The Council had openly attacked human civilians to steal their technology. Any remaining sympathy for the Council's position evaporated overnight. Ambassador Young's communication console lit up with requests for alliance membership. By the end of the week, 67 species had formally joined the Independent Alliance. Only 23 species remained loyal to the Council. Prime Councilor Zephitos finally faced the truth. The Council was finished. Veltharion's hatred and pride had destroyed everything they had built over centuries. I am calling for a vote of no confidence in the current leadership, the ancient being announced. The Council has become everything we once opposed. We must change course before we lose what little remains of our civilization. The vote was swift and decisive. Veltharion's faction was removed from power. The moderate species that remained began discussing how to surrender with dignity and tact. But it might already be too late. The raiders were closing in on Nexus Prime itself. Without quantum disruptors, the great station that had been the heart of galactic civilization for 800 years would fall within days. The final message came from an unexpected source. Captain Lee Young-soo, commanding the defense of human space, sent a simple transmission to Nexus Prime. We have not forgotten the innocent people on your station. Evacuation transports are standing by. Anyone who wants to leave will be given safe passage to Alliance space. It was humanity's final answer to the Council's betrayal. They would not let civilians die for their leaders' mistakes. Even after everything that had happened, humans still tried to save those who had wronged them. The evacuation of Nexus Prime began immediately, and with it, the last chapter of the Galactic Unity Council. 2 years after humanity walked away from the Council, Fleet Admiral Park Sung-min stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the largest rescue operation in galactic history. Millions of civilians fled from Council space as the Raider War finally reached its heart. And humanity was there to help them all. Status report on the evacuation? He asked his aide. 700,000 refugees processed this week. The temporary camps on New Terra are at capacity, but Governor Bay is opening 3 new settlement worlds. Park nodded, watching the endless stream of refugee ships passing through human checkpoints. These were people from dozens of species, fleeing the collapse of everything they had known. 2 years ago, many of them had voted to turn human children into slaves. Now humans were saving their lives. Dr. Kang Ji-won arrived on the bridge carrying her latest research data. As director of the Human Science Consortium, she had overseen advances that made the old Council technology look like children's toys. Admiral, the new quantum tunnel drives are ready for fleet installation. We can cross the galaxy in hours instead of months. The Alliance species have the plans? Of course. All 47 member species are building their own drives. By next year, every Alliance world will be connected by instant travel. It was the new way of doing things. Open research, shared knowledge, voluntary cooperation. The Alliance had accomplished more in 2 years than the Council had in decades. President Yoon Seojin called from New Terra with the weekly political update. Admiral, we have formal membership requests from 8 more species this week. The Council is down to 12 members now. What about the Council leadership? Any word from Zephytos? The Prime Counselor sent another message requesting a meeting. Very different tone than Veltharion used to take. Park smiled. Veltharion had been removed from power months ago, exiled to a remote world where he could cause no more damage. The new Council leadership seemed to understand their situation better. Captain Lee Young-soo's voice came through the communication system from the flagship New Hope. Admiral, we have established the refugee safe zone around Nexus Prime. The station is secure for civilian evacuation. What about raider activity? Minimal. The quantum disruptor network is keeping them away from populated areas. Alliance fleet patrols are mopping up the stragglers. The war against the interdimensional raiders was nearly over. Working together, the Alliance species had built a defense network that made raider attacks impossible. Shared technology and coordinated strategy had succeeded where the Council's centralized control had failed. On New Terra, Prime Minister Cho Hyun-woo was hosting a very unusual meeting. Representatives from the remaining Council species had come to discuss terms for Ki joining the Alliance. But this was not a surrender negotiation. It was a conversation about building something better. We understand you have concerns about maintaining your cultural independence, Cho said to the assembled delegates. That is why the Alliance operates on voluntary cooperation. No species is forced to adopt another's customs or laws. What about the quantum disruptor technology? Asked the Zenteran delegate. Will you share it freely? Of course. The plans are already available to any species that commits to using them only for defense. We believe knowledge should serve all people, not just those who discovered it. It was the opposite of the Council's approach. Instead of hoarding technology to maintain power, the Alliance shared everything to build trust. The most dramatic moment came when an unexpected visitor arrived at New Terra. Prime Counselor Zephytos, the ancient energy being who had led the Council for 2 centuries, came personally to meet with President Yoon. I have come to formally apologize, Zephytos said as they met in the presidential residence. The Council betrayed everything we claimed to believe in. We treated you as servants instead of partners. We tried to enslave your children because We feared your independence. President Yoon was quiet for a moment. Why did you fear us? Because you showed us what we could have been. Instead of learning from your example, we tried to destroy it. They sat in silence. Two leaders who had once worked together, now representing very different futures for the galaxy. What will you do now? Yoon asked. The council is finished. Most of our members have joined your alliance. The rest are considering it. I have come to ask if there is a place for an old fool who finally learned wisdom. Yoon smiled. The alliance is open to any species that believes in voluntary cooperation and mutual respect, even old fools. The formal dissolution of the Galactic Unity Council happened quietly, without ceremony. The remaining member species voted to end the 800-year-old institution and transfer its assets to refugee relief efforts. But something new was taking its place. The Independent Species Alliance had grown to include 93 different civilizations. Unlike the Council, it had no central government that could override member decisions. Each species remained fully independent while cooperating freely on shared challenges. Dr. Kang's research teams, now working with scientists from dozens of species, made breakthroughs that revolutionized galactic civilization. Medical advances that could extend life for centuries, energy sources that made scarcity obsolete, transportation technology that connected distant worlds in minutes. All of it was shared freely among Alliance members. The old Council philosophy of controlling technology to maintain power was replaced by open research that benefited everyone. Admiral Park received the final report on the Raider War while reviewing plans for new colony worlds. All Raider fleets eliminated or driven back to their dimension. The quantum barrier network is stable. No interdimensional incursions detected in 6 months. What about the former Council worlds? Reconstruction proceeding ahead of schedule. Alliance engineering teams have restored basic infrastructure to 90% of affected planets. It was remarkable how quickly things improved when people worked together voluntarily instead of being forced to comply with central authority. Captain Lee brought his flagship back to New Terra after months of patrol duty. As he walked through the capital city, he marveled at how much it had changed. Humans and aliens worked side by side on construction projects. Children from a dozen species played together in the parks. The university attracted students from across the galaxy. It is beautiful, his first officer observed. Nothing like the segregated sections on Nexus Prime. This is what the Council could have been, Lee replied, if they had trusted cooperation instead of demanding control. The final scene played out in the New Terra Council chamber, where Alliance representatives met to discuss expansion into unexplored sectors of the galaxy. Unlike the old Council's authoritarian structure, this was a voluntary assembly where each member species had equal voice. President Yoon called the meeting to order. We have 47 new star systems ready for colonization. Volunteer colony. Ships from 37 species are ready to begin exploration. What about defense? Asked the Alterian representative. Joint patrol fleets will provide security. Each species contributes ships and personnel according to their ability. No species is required to participate beyond their comfort level. Admiral Park smiled as he watched the easy cooperation between species that had barely spoken to each other under Council rule. Fear and control had been replaced by trust and voluntary partnership. Dr. Kang presented her latest research. The quantum tunnel network now connects 215 worlds. Travel time between any two Alliance planets is under 4 hours. We estimate the network could handle 1,000 worlds within 5 years. The old Council had taken 800 years to connect 47 systems with slow, expensive hyperspace lanes. The Alliance had surpassed them in just 2 years. Any new membership applications? President Yoon asked. 6 species from the Outer Rim have requested consideration. All have been provided with Alliance principles and requirements. They will have 6 months to decide if voluntary cooperation suits their cultures. The meeting ended with plans for the next phase of expansion. New worlds to explore, new species to meet, new challenges to face together. The galaxy was bigger and more wonderful than the Council had ever imagined. As the representatives filed out, President Yoon stood alone, in the chamber for a moment. Through the great windows, he could see ships from dozens of species coming and going freely. No permits required, no restrictions based on species or origin. Just people working together because they chose to. 2 years ago, the Council had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. They had voted to enslave human children because they feared human independence. So humanity had walked away from their version of unity and built something better. Not unity through force, but unity through choice. Not cooperation through fear, but cooperation through trust. The galaxy was finally free to become what it could have been all along. And it was more beautiful than anyone had dared to imagine.